Zombie was originally released as Zombie U as a Wii U exclusive on November 18th, 2012. It was later expanded to other platforms on August 18th, 2015 and retitled without the U as simply just Zombie. This game is a first-person survival horror. Zombie begins with you wandering around the streets of London cluelessly when a camera spots you and a voice begins calling you to come to safety. However, this call becomes a double-edged sword in that while you can hear this, it's loud enough to attract every zombie in the area, and immediately you are chased into the safe house by an endless horde of zombies around every corner. When you arrive at the safe house, a man known as the Prepper immediately puts you to work in staying alive by having you take the bug-out bag from the last survivor, looting the area around you and hacking into CCTVs so you both have eyes on the city. As you scavenge the city, you'll find yourself at the majestic Buckingham Palace, where you end up losing contact with the Prepper and find yourself befriending a junior doctor that is the only person still alive at the palace.
Welcome. Do make yourself at home. But please don't touch anything. This is all vital scientific work. I'll close the door behind you, just a precaution. Sorry I can't greet you in person. It's safer for both of us, you understand? I'm researching a cure for this terrible infection. You see, it's slow going, as I have so few subjects to test on. Like those poor Omega Group soldiers. Not my finest hour, I fear. If you'll forgive me for a moment. I'm sure you can help me.
You'll find him cooped up in a small room struggling to find a cure to the virus that has hit the area. The virus epidemic is known as the Blight in the world of Zombie, and he'll send you out on errands for him while the Prepper tries to keep you alive. Essentially, that's the story of Zombie. It is a series of seemingly unending errands for you to run by either the Prepper or the Doctor. It's an extremely dull story that is difficult to get attached to. No one is written well, so you'll never get attached to the characters either. The Prepper is trying to keep you alive, and it's admirable, but there's no personality behind the voice. The Doctor is the same way, with the exception that you can actually see his body. The Doctor is the generic man racing against time to find a cure. I mean, you've seen these characters a million times in all these zombie stories, and without a doubt, there are far better likable incarnations of them. The Prepper will bore you by, saying, "There's a lot of them coming. Preparation is the key to surviving. Try to gather as much as you can," and so on and so forth. The Doctor will piss you off, saying, "Could you get me this book? That book wasn't enough. Can you go get me this book? Oh, wow. Yeah, no, this is interesting. Now, alright. Now, can you go get me these 7 letters scattered throughout the world you literally just went through?"
What? Oh, my. This is Dee's last letter to Francis Bacon. Dear Francis, and so on and so forth. Yes, he mentions the Panacea Code. Now, the Ravens believe they possess this code, and they must still be in London somewhere. I don't know how, but if you can track them down and retrieve this code, it could unlock a cure. Meanwhile, I'm a soldier on. I swore an oath to my queen and my vocation to shed light upon the devil.
Sorry, that was a really bad English accent. I mean, there is some lore to this world in that the virus, or aka Blight, was foreseen by a man named John Dee, and a group called the Ravens of Dee tried to stop his predictions from coming true, but it's even more boring than the Prepper. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just dumb, and if the story is dull, the characters are dull, then the background/lore is going to be dull. The game takes place in London, which is great, but the visuals don't do it any justice. The game altogether doesn't look great. I did take into account that the game was originally developed for the Wii U, which has inferior hardware to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. To compare it to games that came out in 2015 when the remastered game came out, it would be unfair. But to compare it to games that came out in 2012 when this came out, you have Max Payne 3, which is ahead of its time in terms of visuals. Dishonored came out with its own distinct look. Assassin's Creed 3, another game by Ubisoft, and that actually still looks pretty decent in 2017. Zombie doesn't hold up in 2017. In fact, it looks dated for 2015. Your character looks like something out of Team Fortress, and in a bad way. The first character I got looked like a beta version of that fella from Infamous. Bald, no distinct facial features, awkward expressions. The animations are awkward too, in that when you get a view of your entire character when like he has to pull off the wood panels on the door, it's done so exaggerated that you look like a cartoon. The environment is bland to say the least. Even for it being in London, there's nothing that makes me go, whoa, so this is what London would look like if it was in an apocalypse. The environments aren't big to begin with. Each area is relatively small and boring, and if you actually tweaked certain assets here and there, you would believe it was any city ever. The only exception is Buckingham Palace, which is actually massive, and even the Doctor apologizes for it seeming like a labyrinth. The visuals are also pretty nice in here too. I wouldn't go as far as impressive, but compared to every other area in the game, you can tell the developers went above and beyond here. Maybe it's because it's a constant recurring area you have to visit, but that doesn't mean the rest of the environments can look as boring as they are. There are environments in video games that make you want to explore every nook and cranny, that make you want to just stare at the beauty of it. Sometimes they even make you want to travel there if it's a real place. Somehow this game makes London feel boring to me, and I've been wanting to go to London. Even when it looks like an apocalypse, London looks boring here. There just isn't anything that really makes the backdrop of the game outstanding. It's just there. The frame rate and loading also have some issues here, but there weren't really any that negatively impacted my gameplay. But in the rain, my game would lag lightly, and there were some loading issues where some things wouldn't render until I got close. The audio side of the game isn't spectacular either. The voice acting is decent. When you hear top quality voice acting like in The Order, and then you hear god awful voice acting from Ride to Hell, Zombie sits perfectly in the middle. It could have been worse, but it could have been better too. I mean, there's not really much to say about the voice acting. Your character never speaks, but they do make noises as they run and fight. The running is industry standard huffing and puffing. When they fight, however, the man will yell and laugh like a maniac sometimes, and I can't even tell if it's on purpose. The women, however, will just yelp each time you make an impact with a melee weapon. All of these will repeat zombie after zombie after zombie after zombie kill. So don't expect variety and expect yourself to memorize it all within an hour. The music is barely noticeable. It's merely background music, and it's hardly a great score or great soundtrack. The same piano notes will play whenever it saves or loads, and you'll have some decent music start and stop when you fight and kill a zombie. If anything, the music in the game is there to just say, okay player, you've dealt with all the zombies in the area. Going to fade out the music now. Sometimes in the game there was just silence, and the silence was a nice touch sometimes, in that it attempted to add some suspense to the game, but when everything is boring, the silence adds on to the bore. Like the audio, the gameplay is balanced. It doesn't feel great, but it's far from bad. You have to use 2 buttons to use melee weapons. You shoot with the regular trigger, you hold an analog stick to sprint. Been there, done that in other games. There is an interesting gameplay element in that when you die, you don't respawn as the same character, but rather spawn as a new character. This may be why the player character looks as bad as they do, because they might be randomly generated.
Hello? Hello? Bollocks! Are you prepared? You as well. Off to the bunker again. Feels like somebody's trying to kill off everyone I'm helping. Well, it's your life. Prepper out.
My first character was, I believe, an executive assistant, and my second character was a researcher. It doesn't make a bit of difference because they don't speak, and one time I died on an errand for the doctor, came back as a woman, and he responded with, "Hey, you're back, still haven't found it?" I mean, that would have been a great opportunity to at least add a little line there, something like, "Oh, last person didn't make it, well, best of luck to you." Even something generic to add to the feeling that you're playing as a new character. The whole new character each time you die doesn't make all that much of a difference. I mean, it's interesting, but it matters fuck all. If anything, it actually hinders you. Whatever you are carrying in your backpack stays on that person that died. That means when you spawn as a new character, if you want all your supplies back, you have to go all the way back to where your last character died, kill them, and then take the bag back. That being said, I think that's the most defining element of this game. Everything else has been done. You can carry a few items with you at a time, and you have to be tactical with your resources. Anything else has to go in a little safe box. I mean, that's basically Resident Evil. However, unlike Resident Evil, there's no magic box in every area that if you put something away in one box, it's in all of the boxes. In fact, in Zombie, there's only one safe box, and it's all the way in your safe house. So if you want to put something away or get something out, you best hope you're not extremely far from your safe house. The shooting is stiff, and you can get upgrades, but it never really changes the stiffness. Beating enemies to death is always the best route because it saves you ammo, and you can see a bit of their skull fly off, but it becomes annoying with the sounds your character makes. Sprinting is limited, so you can't really just dart back and forth, and even then the sprinting feels slow, which is a shame because revisiting areas is a key element to this game. In the Wii U, you would use the second screen as a map and as a radar. In the PS4 version, this is all on your TV screen, and to my surprise, it's not bulky and it's pretty out of the way. However, this is your only map. You can't open a bigger map for the entire area, which becomes problematic when you're backtracking and looking for a specific area. The game isn't massive, and it's small enough for you to memorize some key landmarks, but that's not an excuse. You can also ping your map to see if there are any enemies on the map around you. When you ping, they'll show up as red dots on your mini-map. This works well most of the time too, except when the game is a scripted jump scare that will make no sense because for some reason the zombie wasn't picked up by your radar. That specific zombie wasn't picked up by your radar because I guess the game was like, no, this zombie is a jump scare. There's another feature of your map/screen thing that you can scan around you to see if there are any items that you can pick up. This makes life so much easier because you don't have to go to every single trash can, every single suitcase, every single little corner of the map, because this feature will just literally tell you what can be looted and what can't be looted, what zombies have loot on them, what zombies don't have loot on them. It is an incredible time saver. In summation, the game is far from the worst game I've ever played, but it's definitely not good. If it means anything, I got this for free on PlayStation Plus a while ago, and I only played 1 hour before I gave up and played something better. If it means anything, the trophies for this game on PS4 list beating this game in any mode as of March 19th, 2017 are in the 1% area and are considered ultra rare. So even beating this game in the easiest of modes is an ultra rare trophy. People didn't even bother to finish this game in the easiest difficulty, and it's not hard to see why. There isn't anything that comes out of this experience. The combat is extremely repetitive, the audio is boring, the writing and dialogue and story are all incredibly boring, and the area this game takes place in looks like one of those old-timey sets where they were constantly running like on a treadmill. I mean, I was actually fine playing this game, running generic errands, up until I was told that I had to find 7 envelopes to progress the story. 7 envelopes, and in a game that's already a pain to traverse without markers, it actually made me just shut off the system. That's how much I was bothered. 7 envelopes, no markers or anything. You have to find them yourself. It was just, I just turned off my system right there. My recommendation for Zombie is to simply let it go, unless you get it in the bargain bin for like a $5 or less. It really isn't worth much more than that. I suppose the game might have been fun on the Wii U with the Wii U's gimmicks and the second screen and all that, but with a regular controller on a system that can do so much more, there's really no incentive to play this. So for me, Zombie gets a 3.5 out of 10.
I thought we were partners. I trusted you, gave you skills and knowledge. I should fucking kill you myself. Get the hell out of my safe house!